Love is often described as a beautiful feeling that brings happiness, comfort, and emotional security. But not every love story ends with joy. Some love stories leave behind deep emotional scars, sleepless nights, and memories that refuse to fade. Sometimes the person we love the most becomes the same person who hurts us the most. Even when the relationship becomes toxic, the heart continues to hold on, refusing to let go of someone who once meant everything. Many people have experienced a relationship where they gave their whole heart to someone, only to be met with disappointment, confusion, and emotional pain. They stayed through broken promises, endless arguments, mixed signals, and moments that slowly damaged their confidence. Yet despite everything, they continued loving that person. They hoped things would improve. They believed that one day the relationship would return to the way it was in the beginning. Unfortunately, that hope often keeps people trapped in situations that slowly break them psychologically. When someone has a powerful emotional influence over you, their words can affect your self-esteem, their approval can determine your happiness, and their absence can leave a painful emptiness in your life. You may find yourself making excuses for their behavior, ignoring warning signs, and sacrificing parts of your own identity just to keep the relationship alive. The fear of losing them becomes stronger than the desire to protect your own emotional well-being. The most painful part is that psychological wounds are often invisible. Other people may not see what you're going through. They may not understand why you're still attached to someone who hurt you so deeply. But emotional bonds are complex. Love is not always logical. The heart can remain connected to someone long after trust has been damaged and happiness has disappeared. In this video, we will explore 15 powerful signs that reveal what happens when someone breaks you psychologically, yet you still can't stop loving them. These signs reflect the emotional struggles, self-doubt, loneliness, and hope that many people experience in difficult relationships. You may recognize your own story in some of these signs, or perhaps you'll better understand what someone else has been going through. Remember, recognizing these signs is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the emotional patterns that can develop when love and pain become deeply connected. Awareness is often the first step toward healing. As we go through these signs, you may discover why letting go felt impossible, why the memories stayed with you, and why your heart continued to hold on even when your mind knew something was wrong. Let's begin. You kept forgiving the same hurt again and again. One of the strongest signs that love had a powerful hold over you was repeatedly forgiving the same behavior, even when it continued to hurt you. Every time she apologized, promised to change, or showed a brief moment of affection, you convinced yourself that things would be different. You focused on the good memories and ignored the emotional pain that kept returning. Deep down, you hoped that your patience and loyalty would eventually be rewarded with the love you always wanted from her. Instead of protecting your own feelings, you kept giving more chances. Over time, this cycle became normal, and you began accepting treatment that you would never have tolerated from anyone else. The fear of losing her felt greater than the pain she caused. Because of that, you stayed, forgave, and hoped again, even when the evidence suggested that nothing was truly changing. Her words stayed in your mind for days. When someone affects you psychologically, their words often remain in your mind long after the conversation ends. A single criticism, insult, or cold comment from her could replay in your thoughts for days. You found yourself analyzing every sentence, wondering what she really meant, or whether you had done something wrong. Even when you were busy with work, studies, or friends, her words continued to echo in your mind. The emotional impact became difficult to escape. Positive comments from others could not erase the effect of what she said. You started measuring your worth through her opinions, allowing her words to influence your confidence and emotions. This constant mental replay created stress and confusion. Instead of feeling secure in the relationship, you felt trapped inside your own thoughts. Yet despite the pain her words caused, your feelings for her remained strong, making it even harder to move forward. You started doubting your own reality. A painful sign of emotional damage is beginning to question your own memories, feelings, and understanding of events. Whenever you brought up something that hurt you, she might have denied it, minimized it, or made you feel like you were overreacting. Over time, you stopped trusting your own judgment. You wondered if your feelings were valid or if you were truly the problem. Situations that once seemed clear became confusing because you constantly questioned yourself. You spent hours thinking about conversations, trying to figure out what was real and what was not. This self-doubt slowly weakened your confidence and made you more dependent on her version of reality. The more confused you became, the more you looked to her for answers. Even though this process was emotionally exhausting, your love for her kept you attached. You wanted understanding and reassurance. But instead, you found yourself lost in uncertainty. You felt drained but couldn't walk away. Love is supposed to bring comfort and support, but in a toxic situation, it can leave you emotionally exhausted. You noticed that interactions with her often left you feeling tired, stressed, or emotionally empty. Instead of feeling excited about the future, you felt overwhelmed by constant worries and emotional ups and downs. Yet no matter how exhausted you became, leaving felt impossible. Every time you considered walking away, memories of happier moments pulled you back. You remembered the times she made you smile and convinced yourself that those moments would return. The emotional attachment became stronger than the pain itself. You kept investing more energy into fixing the relationship, hoping your efforts would finally make things better. Unfortunately, the more you gave, the more drained you felt. Despite recognizing the damage, your heart remained connected to her, making it difficult to choose your own peace over the relationship. You blamed yourself for every problem. When someone has a strong psychological influence over you, it becomes easy to carry responsibility for things that are not entirely your fault. Whenever arguments happened, you immediately looked for mistakes in yourself. You believed that if you were more understanding, more patient, or somehow better, the relationship would improve. Instead of examining her actions fairly, you placed most of the blame on your own shoulders. This constant self-blame created guilt and lowered your self-esteem. You began believing that you were responsible for her moods, reactions, and behavior. Even when others pointed out that the relationship was unhealthy, you defended her and criticized yourself. Over time, this mindset became emotionally damaging because it prevented you from seeing the situation clearly. You continued trying to fix everything alone while ignoring your own needs. The more you blamed yourself, the more trapped you felt, yet your love for her kept you holding on. Her approval became your happiness. A major sign of emotional dependence is when your happiness starts depending on one person's approval. You noticed that your mood changed based on how she treated you. If she praised you, gave you attention, or showed affection, your entire day felt brighter. But if she ignored you, acted cold, or seemed disappointed, you felt anxious and upset. Instead of finding confidence within yourself, you began seeking validation from her. Every compliment felt incredibly valuable because it became the source of your self-worth. Over time, you worked harder and harder to earn her approval, often sacrificing your own needs in the process. You measured your success in the relationship by her reactions rather than by your own feelings. This emotional dependency made it difficult to think clearly because losing her approval felt like losing a part of yourself. Even when she hurt you, the desire for her acceptance kept pulling you back. You ignored red flags because of love. Love can sometimes make people overlook warning signs that would otherwise be obvious. Deep inside, you noticed behaviors that made you uncomfortable, but you chose to focus on the good moments instead. You excused hurtful actions, justified broken promises, and convinced yourself that every problem had a reasonable explanation. Friends or family may have pointed out concerns, yet you defended her because you wanted the relationship to work. The emotional connection was so strong that admitting the truth felt too painful. You believed that love could overcome every issue if you just stayed patient. As time passed, those red flags became impossible to ignore, but by then you were already deeply attached. Looking back, you realized that many problems were visible from the beginning. However, your hope for a better future blinded you to the reality of the present, keeping you in a situation that continued to cause emotional pain. You lost confidence around her. Healthy relationships usually help people feel secure and valued. In a damaging relationship, the opposite can happen. You gradually became less confident whenever you were around her. You started overthinking what to say, how to act, and whether your choices would upset her. The fear of criticism or rejection made you second-guess yourself constantly. Activities that once felt easy suddenly became stressful because you worried about her opinion. Little by little, your self-belief weakened. You stopped expressing yourself freely and became more focused on avoiding conflict. The person you once were seemed to disappear as you adapted your behavior to fit her expectations. This loss of confidence affected other areas of life as well, including friendships, work, and personal goals. Yet despite feeling smaller and less secure, you remained emotionally attached because you still hoped she would eventually make you feel loved and appreciated, you felt lonely, even when she was there. One of the saddest experiences in a troubled relationship is feeling lonely while sitting right next to the person you love. Physical presence does not always create emotional connection. Even when she was with you, there were moments when you felt unseen, unheard, and emotionally distant. Conversations lacked depth, your feelings were ignored, or your emotional needs remained unmet. You longed for understanding and support, but often felt like you were facing your struggles alone. This loneliness became especially painful because it existed inside a relationship that was supposed to provide comfort. You missed the emotional closeness you hoped to have and kept waiting for things to change. Every small sign of affection renewed your hope, but the feeling of emptiness always returned. Despite being surrounded by the person you loved, your heart still carried a sense of isolation that became difficult to ignore. You changed yourself to keep her happy. Love naturally involves compromise, but there is a difference between healthy compromise and losing yourself. Over time, you began changing parts of your personality, habits, and preferences simply to avoid conflict or gain her approval. You stopped doing certain things you enjoyed because she disliked them. You adjusted your opinions, ignored your needs, and hid parts of yourself to maintain peace in the relationship. At first, these changes seemed small, but they gradually added up. One day, you looked at yourself and realized how much of your identity had been sacrificed. The desire to keep her happy became stronger than the desire to stay true to who you were. You believed that if you changed enough, the relationship would finally become stable and loving. Unfortunately, constantly changing yourself often leads to resentment and emotional exhaustion. The more you abandoned your authentic self, the more difficult it became to recognize the person you once were. You were afraid of losing her, despite the pain. Even though the relationship caused emotional pain, the thought of losing her felt even more frightening. You became attached not only to who she was, but also to the future you imagined with her. Every time you considered leaving, memories of good moments filled your mind and made you hesitate. You worried that no one else would understand you the way she once did. The fear of being alone became stronger than the desire to escape the hurt. Because of this, you tolerated situations that damaged your emotional well-being. You convinced yourself that some pain was worth enduring. If it meant keeping her in your life, this fear created a powerful emotional bond that was difficult to break. Even when you recognized that the relationship was unhealthy, your heart continued holding on. The possibility of losing her felt like losing a part of yourself, making it incredibly hard to walk away. Her mixed signals kept you emotionally trapped. One day she seemed loving, caring, and deeply interested in you. The next day she appeared distant, cold, or completely disconnected. These mixed signals created confusion that kept you emotionally trapped. Whenever you felt ready to give up, she would show a small amount of affection that reignited your hope. Those brief moments convinced you that things were finally improving. Then, without warning, the distance returned. This cycle repeated again and again, making it difficult to make a clear decision about the relationship. You spent countless hours trying to understand her behavior and searching for meaning behind every action. The uncertainty became emotionally exhausting, yet it also kept you attached, because you never knew what would happen next. You remained focused on winning back the affection you once experienced. The inconsistency created an emotional roller coaster that made moving on feel almost impossible. Friends noticed the change in you. Sometimes the people around us notice changes before we do. Friends and family began seeing differences in your mood, confidence, and overall behavior. They noticed that you seemed more stressed, quieter, or emotionally exhausted than before. Some may have expressed concern about how the relationship was affecting you. At first, you might have dismissed their observations because you wanted to protect her or defend the relationship. However, their concerns often came from a place of genuine care. They remembered the happier and more confident version of you. As time passed, it became harder to ignore the fact that the relationship had changed you. The emotional pressure you carried was visible to those who cared about you. While you continued focusing on saving the relationship, the people around you could clearly see the toll it was taking on your mental and emotional health. You missed her even after the breakup. Breaking up did not immediately erase your feelings. Even after the relationship ended, thoughts of her continued to follow you. Certain songs, places, or memories brought back powerful emotions. You missed the good moments, the dreams you shared, and the connection you once believed was special. Sometimes you even found yourself forgetting the painful parts and remembering only the happiest memories. This made moving on much more difficult. The emotional attachment remained strong because love does not disappear overnight. You compared new experiences to what you had with her and wondered whether she ever thought about you too. Although the relationship may have caused significant pain, your heart still longed for the comfort and familiarity she represented. Missing her did not necessarily mean the relationship was healthy. It simply showed how deeply you had loved and invested yourself emotionally. Part of you still hoped she would change. Perhaps the strongest sign of all was the hope that never completely disappeared. No matter how many times you were disappointed, a part of you believed that she would eventually change. You imagined a future where she understood your pain, treated you differently, and became the person you always hoped she could be. This hope kept you holding on long after others would have let go. You focused on her potential rather than her actions. Every small improvement felt like proof that better days were coming. Unfortunately, hope can sometimes keep people attached to situations that are no longer healthy. Instead of accepting reality, you continued waiting for a version of her that may never fully exist. Even after everything that happened, your heart remained open to the possibility of change. That lingering hope revealed just how deeply you loved her. Despite all the emotional scars left behind,